So I'm going to just talk about one exercise for now because it's way too much to um, dive into all the things about perspective and all the other things that you get from like a 10-week class. So instead, I'm just going to talk about this one exercise, which I think is really good for getting you thinking about objects in space and thinking about the shapes. And it comes from a book called Rapid Viz, which I'll have a link in the Patreon and whatever. And some downloads you can just have because they're just out there, or links to them or whatever. But it's basically, it's just like this exercise is just about visualizing objects. And I think it's really worthwhile to go through this exercise just to see if you can think about objects in space, right? So the way to think about it is like this is you can obviously there's instructions and whatever, but like so you get three views. The book is by an industrial designer, and so you get a top, let's say front, and then side, right? Like, so you get three views, right? So that's from the top, that's from the front, that's from the side. You can, whatever, it doesn't matter. But these are the three views that you get, and then you figure out what the space, like what the object is in 3D space. And here's an example of that first one, right? So it's like, you can see from the top, right? So, and for example, because the book actually had an available template for it, I just cut it out. But so, think about like a cube, right? So this is the simplest kind of form to think about. So the information they give you, right? So let's figure out one together, okay? So and some of them are much more complicated and make you think a little bit more, a little confusing. They're also not like super accurate because they're just hand drawn. But the things to think about are like how to like draw them in 3D space, basically, based on just the information you have here. So let's do this one. Let's do that one because that one is kind of weird looking, right? Or at least at first, it's like you look at it and you're like, what the hell is going on there? So the basic idea of this whole thing is this exercise is you basically so you have these three views. So this is the top. So that's the top. So you draw what you see, right? Like you literally can draw, right? Like you draw a line. So that's your line. That's all you have. And then let's say turn like this. So that's this view. And you're like, okay, so I have a line here. Okay. And then you turn it like this. And then you're like, oh, okay. And I have a line right here. Okay. And then you realize, okay, so basically what's happening is that this is cut off, right? So if you were to draw it, right, and I'm going to use I'm not going to draw it freehand because maybe you don't want to draw it freehand, but I'm going to use these isometric cubes, right? So, and we just do the same thing as we did here, right? So that's the top. So let's use it as reference. Let's say, so line at the top, line here on the side, and then we have this line, and then so that's, you can't see that, but it's right there, right? So you just connect the lines, right? And that's all it is, right? So that's the shape. The shape is of this cube. basically a cube with this edge cut off. Or let's turn it another way. Maybe that's difficult to see or whatever. Let's see, so again, we can just draw those lines. We're just turning it this way. So like this is now we're looking at it like this, right? Okay, so we draw that. Draw this. And we finish the cube. We can just finish it up. And so that shape is cut off, right? Really simple kind of way to think about it, and basically any of these you can do the same thing. You're just taking a cube and you're just like, okay, well what do I see on this side? What do I see on this side? All right, so let's do another one just for fun. Let's do that one because why not? So here, let's say I'm going to use the same cube but just the different sides. So again, what do we see? Okay, so that's the top, that's the side, and that's the front, the side. Okay, hold on. How does this work? Right, so you have to think about it. You're like, what? Wait a minute. Okay, so top. Okay. But you can kind of see from this view that looks like it's 3 equal sides. Like the shape is like 3 equal things. So even though it's drawn kind of bigger here, it looks like, I'm just gonna go with equal, right? So, okay, top. All right, so that's the lines, right? Top, this is the top. Okay, so turn it like this, okay. And let's see here. Okay, so I just see one line, okay. So about, let's say it's again a third down or 2/3 down, and then that corner, okay. Okay. All right, and then what's happening? No, I don't think it's turned this way, because if it was, then we'd probably see these dotted lines. So I'm going to turn it this way. Okay, and then you draw that. All right. You can see it's again here, meets this. Down, meets this. So my assumption here is that it just does this, right? So that's the shape, right? It's just cut away, right? Like there, you can see, cut this and then that. So let's say again, we're looking at this isometric cubes. Isometric, by the way, just means that it's a perspective, but it's not converging anywhere. The lines just are always parallel, which is just easier for drawing. And for drawing, let's say with something like this, with this kind of ruler that you can see through, and you can kind of line up with, like, you know, straight lines. Okay, so let's use this as an example. Okay, so top, right? Dividing it in thirds, about. This is approximate, right? Okay, so let's say that's the front. Going down about 2/3, and then side, and then side, and then let's see here, and then okay, and then this line. Okay, so this, and then you draw this because that's cut away, and then this again. This meets with this, right? Because the same thing on both sides, and we can finish the cube if we want, right? To understand the shape better. Let's say like this. Right? So that's the shape. That's this shape. So, you know, I would highly recommend, I'll attach it and stuff so you can like try it out. It's very like, it's a fun exercise, and there's a more complicated, this is all cubes. So very simple. You can use this kind of thing, so you don't have to like try to learn how to draw cubes, although you should, because it's worthwhile. But then it gets slightly more complicated, slightly more like not cubes anymore, but it's still the same idea of combining shapes and turning them in space, right? I would recommend you go through it for your own sake if you want to learn how to understand objects in space and how to think about them. The only things I will tell you that can be useful are two kind of basic dividing things, and also a way to kind of find points around the cube, right? So one of the things that we were doing in the class is learning how to just kind of run around the box to find different things. So we don't have to like measure everything, but we can just kind of like find stuff. So let's say we want to divide this in half like this, right? Like, well, where is the middle, right? The simplest way is to draw an X from each corner. And then you basically can use, because this is isometric, you can basically just line it up with like one of the top or bottom lines, and then draw through the middle, and then that's your middle point, right, of the cube in perspective. And you can also go this way, right? Turn it sideways, and then you've divided the cube up into 4 parts, right? So if you wanted to, let's say, so this is where the running around the cube thing is really useful, because this is now here and this is here, so you know also this side the way it's divided, and you know the way this side is divided, because again you can just use this. If you're actually dealing with perspective, like 1 point or 2 point, whatever, you can, these lines would actually just go back to the vanishing points, right? Depending on what it is, but you know. And then again, now you have these, and then you can go down through there, and this one goes to there, so you've divided the other side here, right? So it's kind of like this is just running around the box this way, and then you can make shapes if you want, right? So suddenly we made this weird X shape in the middle, right? You can add curves to it if you want. So you suddenly create that kind of shape. Maybe another curve here. You're drawing through, so you can see through. It's all like kind of basic stuff. So that's to divide it in half, let's say. To divide it in, like, let's say thirds, like the way we did here, it's slightly more complicated. But basically it's the same thing, or the fastest way that I found is just like, again, you can just do that. You try find the middle, you draw that line. Being very accurate, but whatever. And then from here, all you do is take that middle point to the other corners, the bottom corners, or whichever corners. And obviously you have to turn it the way you want. But so now these points right here, right, with these 2 points, that's dividing it in thirds. So this is kind of the most basic way to find it. But it's really like, I would recommend just kind of learning to eyeball it most of the time. Because if you can eyeball it, and if you can see like a cube in space, you're going to save yourself so much time, you know? It's going to be like, you're going to be like, wow, this is I'm not having to deal and measure everything, but anyway, so this is a good way to just like start out and think about it. So, you know, so I created these 2 shapes, these 2 separate shapes now, right? With like this middle part being cut out. It's just a way of thinking about shapes. in some sort of perspective. And yeah, I'll include all the kind of download bits. Like I'll include this and this, so you can kind of mess with it. And I would, encourage it, because assuming you want to learn draw anything, it's fun, and it's fun. And it's fun. If you like doing your little wordles, you may like this. Hey, I don't know. You like your Sudoku? Maybe you like your cube game. Visualizing object in space. Hey, okay.